Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, Assalamu. The motion that is under debate today is military courts have an effective mechanism for the trial of hardcore terrorists, and it should become the permanent feature of Pakistani legal system. So the proposition, if we talk about the military courts, so we can also call them the constitutional courts because they are backed by the constitution. They have a proper cover of the constitution. They came up into existence after the constitutional amendment. So we can also term as the constitutional courts. These are, we can call it special courts. And if we see why we need it, then ladies and gentlemen, remember the APS attack, 16 December 2014. The innocent children, girls and boys were blasted, were killed in inhuman way. And these are not only the APS boys and girls and innocent children. According to Attorney General of Pakistan, till now, 56,000 lives has been perished by these barbarian hardcore terrorists. We have lost 56,000 precious lives. That's why we need the specific measures. And if we see the history, then there is legislation for counter-terrorism procedure. Ladies and gentlemen, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1975 passed the Suppression of Terrorism Act, and then the current ADA, anti-terrorist 1997 has been passed. And if we see the section 6 of ADA, which defines the definition of terrorism, this is the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen. There is the issue in the definition of terrorism. So when we see the global definition of terrorism, so they include, like the resolution 49 of UNGA, they include 3 points in the definition of terrorism. First, the atmosphere, second, the manzilia, and third, the motivation. But in the definition provided in section 6 of our Pakistani ADA, only 2 things are incorporated: atmosphere and manzilia. And basic motivation of that attack has been neglected. So this is the drawback which we see in the definition of our ADA of section 6. And moving forward, Pakistan Protection Act 2014 was not actually, it was a failure, it was not implemented. And if you see the current statute of Pakistan like PPC and the CRPC, so they are made in the arena of Anglo-Saxon law. They are too much old. If you see the dates, I hope your grandfather will not alive at that time. 1906 and 1898, these was passed at that time. So the current security situation in Pakistan is facing right now, these are not compatible. So that's why we need to take specific measures. We need to take specific steps to counter these menace. So that's why the military courts are the requirement of the today's era to encounter these things. And now coming towards the facts, coming towards the law about these things. So after passing the 21st Amendment, government said that you have 2 years, military courts, you have 2 years to work, and in this 2 years, we will make better our criminal justice system, we will equip our courts so that they can tackle these things. But 2 years have passed, but our criminal system is still there. Our courts are not well equipped, so that's why 2 more years are given to the military courts. That go ahead and you can do your work. And this is the failure of our criminal justice system. This is not the failure of we are always doing its job. Military courts are doing its job. They have convicted, I think, nearly 150 and more than these terrorists. So they are doing their job. And if we see the data, last 15 years, these executive courts have not hanged even a single terrorist in the whole last 15 years. They have given death sentence, but it is not implemented. Last 15 years, we have not seen even a single terrorist has been hanged. That's why the rate of that terrorist attack was so much higher in Pakistan before the establishment of this military courts. And coming toward the other point, the executive courts can easily be politicized. Judges can receive the call from the executive authorities and they can acquit the criminals. And second thing, another issue is this: the executive judiciary have that they are a long procedure and there are too much delay. We see, you all people are familiar with this. That justice delayed, justice denied. So justice is too much delayed. Even sometimes a criminal has been accused, has been died in the jail, and they don't got the decision of. So justice is delayed. That's why we need military courts. And another thing, if you see military courts, the issue which foreign-funded human rights organization raised too much noise, that military courts are not civilians. There is a distinction which we must come to know. Military courts are not trying the civilians. They are not trying you and me. They are trying the hardcore terrorists. Military courts are trying hardcore terrorists of the country, which they call. They are not trying the normal and usual civilians. Another thing is this: when we see that military court has the definition of terrorism, and that is the controversial, so this is not a big thing. There is an irregularity in the definition of terrorism, then we can fix it. This is not a big deal that we should grab the whole system because of a minor irregularity in the definition of the terrorism of the Pakistan Army Act. Even on the international level, we don't have a universal definition of terrorism. So this is not a big thing for which we say that wrap up the whole system, which is continuing, which is working efficiently. Like you see, the United Nations Security Council has passed numerous resolutions on terrorism, like 2185, 2178, 2170, 1368, 1267, but we don't still have a universal definition of terrorism. So, if we see the number of the conviction in 2012, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there were many attacks, but only 4% was convicted. And in Punjab, 559 cases and 414 were acquitted. So this is the ratio. And even the international community criticized on our courts that there is a high rate of acquittal in the aggressive courts. Like the American report is there, which says 74%, some say 75% are got acquitted. So US State Department released its 2010 county reports on terrorism, which says Pakistan was criticized as being plugged by an acquittal rate of approximately 75% and a legal system. So these are the things. And if you see the example of military courts around the globe, it is not only the Pakistan which have the military courts. We see that Lebanon have the military courts working on. We see there are many nations who have tried their citizens under the law of war in specific circumstances. Like in US, the aftermath of the American Civil War. Another example, King Hamad of Bahrain had approved the amendment to Article 105B of Bahrain's constitution, granting military courts to private civilians. So it is not only the Pakistan where foreign human rights organizations make noise. Wherever there are special circumstances, we need special steps to meet those things. Our first priority is to secure the peace and international security and peace and justice in our country. Another thing is this, that we see that effective working of military courts, and another they have made the changes like after 28th amendment that disclosure of arrest, they have given a right of counsel to have a private counsel. So monitoring performance has been also made. So on the other side, witnesses are not, if we see the executive courts, the difference between military and executive court, witnesses are not scared, judges are not scared, witnesses are scared of us to come forward and give testimony against the hardcore terrorists. This is not practical. Even we have the example, our whole kachari, our judges has been blasted. And they are the victim of terrorist attacks. So they cannot tackle this situation. So this is the army which is doing, and let him do this work. Thank you so much.
First speaker from the opposition, Nazar.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. And our opponent had portrayed a very simple picture, and but unfortunately the matter is not that much simple as we like to. The very first thing is that the military codes are a big question mark on the dichotomy of the past in our state. Secondly, without any proper, precise definition, as our opponents have already stated, there is no precise definition, in fact, globally in our domestic system. How can anyone be confident enough to decide that that person is a hardcore terrorist? Thirdly, a permanent reform in our criminal legal system is indeed required, and we do not deny the fact. But the problem is that the military codes are a short-term solution and not a real thought-out solution for combating terrorism. And this is what Justice Khosa has said in his dissenting opinion. Also, military codes were made for temporary basis, and right now in the policy or the statement in front of us, which is proposing that it should be a permanent part of our legal system. And we strongly oppose this statement because we agree that the reforms are required, and the reforms which were made after the 21st Amendment were really, they did nothing with the reform in the criminal procedure system of Pakistan. But the fact is that because of that, the reforms passed are inadequate to improve our legal system, cannot delegate the fact that the military codes are actually the only solution available to improve our legal system. Secondly, we reject to accept the fact that the military codes are the effective mechanism or the only effective mechanism to deal with terrorism. Let us highlight that this effective mechanism have no criteria to select the hardcore terrorist. I would request my opponents to be kind enough to explain the criteria by which you will differentiate between a civilian and a hardcore terrorist who is going to be tried in the military code actually. Secondly, also in this effective mechanism, the accused are tried with a similar procedure as in the court-martial, in which 3 to 5 serving military officers without any legal training are there, and they can even award you a death sentence without any fair trial. Or at least we do not what sort of trial it is, because it's a secret trial. And also that the right to appeal is not available to the accused in this effective mechanism. And the appeal can be made only to military tribunals, and a very limited right of review is available to the High Court or Supreme Court. So how come anyone can argue that this is an effective mechanism when they are actually by these military codes we are violating the international standards and the international human rights obligation which are there on our Pakistani state. International standards, let us point out some international standards, not all of them, that international standards clarify that the jurisdiction of military tribunals should be restricted solely to specifically military offences committed by the military persons. If military is good enough, military can do justice and in a better way, then let the courts shut down. Let's put away our dark courts, let the military do that job as well. But military job is not to provide justice, its job is to defend the borders actually. So let military do everything because they can do everything and they are going to do anything. So in a democratic society you are suggesting that military can provide justice what an argument actually. Well, under article also according to the international standard, under article 14 of International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, everyone shall be entitled to a fair and public hearing of competent, independent and impartial tribunal established by law. Though we have given them a cover of constitutional amendments and they are constitutional but the competency, independent and impartiality is questioned. Fair and public hearing is also not there. So basically we are violating that human right standard. Also according to the UN Human Rights Committee, right to fair trial before an independent and impartial court under Article 14 applies to all courts, whether they are normal courts or the military courts. Also the trials, according to the UN Human Rights Committee, the trials of civilians and military courts raise serious problems as far as equitable, impartial and independent administration of justice is concerned. So there are a number of principles which we can highlight. Also according to the regional instruments and committees, for instance, European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights in Fundamental Regions, American Convention of Human Charter on Human and Public Rights, the Principle and Guidelines on the Right to a Fair Trial and Legal Assistance in Africa, all of them state, and also according to the case law of Inter-American Courts of Human Rights, that in no circumstances civilians can be tried in military courts. So let us not mix the fact that they are only the hardcore terrorists. It means that you are already making an assumption that whoever is being tried in a military court, he is a terrorist. So, but you know, the basic principle of justice remains there, that a person is innocent until proven guilty, and also because we are in Islamic Republic of Pakistan and Islamic laws do apply here, and Asal Baram and Zimma, a man is innocent until proven guilty, is also a principle of Islamic jurisprudence as well. And even if like there are exceptional situations in which we do have some exception, we can have some exception there, yes, but the exceptions also have certain restrictions and limits as well. So you cannot deviate from every legal principle on the basis of that, like there is a necessity, so we have to commit the unlawful prohibited thing as well. According to the 2003 case of African Commission of Human Rights, Law Office of Qazi Suleiman versus Sudan, the court held that the civilian appearing before and being tried by a military regulations violate the fundamental principle of fair trial. So you cannot defend that thing that there is a fair trial in military courts, and even if it's something which is being reformed in the 28th Amendment, it is something which is done. Practical implementation are still to be judged later on. So apart from it, the lack of independence arising from the fact that the military tribunals are formed and governed by the military bodies within the executive branch of the government and are not a part of independent judicial branch is a serious concern. So military courts are the executive courts, our normal courts are not the executive courts. They are a part of a separate independent part of our state, which is judiciary actually. Other than that, let us yes, we agree that the terrorists should be given some real and serious punishments, because we are in a state of serious state in which we are handling with some real criminals actually. But the war of terror, let us go back to 2001 when 9/11 happened. So basically, who is the real, alarm of that global war and terrorism is America. And even this terrorist cases in America are dealt by the US Supreme Court and normal courts, and not by the military courts actually. And let me quote that Hamdi versus Rumsfeld, the case in the US Supreme Court. Yasir Hassan Hamdi, a US national, was captured in Afghanistan by fighting for the Taliban. And the US Supreme Court held that upheld the detention, but declared that the US citizen held in USA were entitled to a meaningful opportunity to contest the factual basis for that declaration before a neutral decision maker. And also that it was held by the US Supreme Court that the Hamdi has an unquestionable right to assess the counsel, and which both are unavailable in the military courts of Pakistan. And also that our state, even if not, but we are in a state of war, but this does not mean that the executive have a blank check to do whatever they want to do. And let us not forget the fact we cannot 100% sure that we are always be presumed as civilians and not a hardcore terrorist. We can be a suspect of terrorists, and can our opponents agree with the fact that in that situation they can let go their few human rights like fair trial and something else maybe. So there are some serious concerns regarding military courts in international community and international situations as well. In that particular scenario, we need reforms in our legal system, but the military court is not the only effective mechanism, and it cannot be the common part of our legal system at all. Thank you so much.
Second speaker for the proposition, Omar Janua.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for that very passionate speech. I was definitely moved by your arguments, but not convinced by them for sure. I would like to start my side, the second argumentative side, by the words of Justice Afzal Khan in the case, in a Supreme Court case with Rawalpindi Bar Association versus the Federation of Pakistan in 2015. And, he says, and I quote, the reason for high rate of acquittals is the lack of evidence, lack of proper investigation, and lack of proper prosecution. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask you, which part of the trichotomy of powers, or like you just said, which part of the government or the entire nation does this whole thing lie in? It's within the judiciary and the executive, right? And that where they fail to do this, and the cost is the death and the high amount of terrorism caused being accorded to regular civilians and citizens of Pakistan, I don't think that's a very fair situation. To start off with the rebuttals, I'd like to say that yes, the military courts were supposed to be, they have been called stopgap arrangements, and nowhere will we ever say that it is actually the only practical solution. It is one of the solutions. It is a very codified solution. It's a constitutional solution, and yes, it is a stopgap arrangement. But when all other institutions fail, it's also a very practical one. Here, the basic debate, I would say, lies in the rights of the victims of terrorism, whose numbers range from 50,000 to 70,000, versus the rights of the accused hardcore terrorists, which are much less in number. So when you try and balance these rights, it's a very good question. But I will certainly address it in the moments to come. And of course, as the point you said about military justice, well, I would say military justice is a very fundamental concept in countries and militaries all around the world. It is very essential to maintaining law and order within the and a proper manner of discipline within the armed forces. And without it, honestly, militaries cannot function. And this has been this is actually a universal consensus on this. And also another point about regional commitments. You pointed towards European and African commitment conventions as kind of the image that was conveyed was like somehow they have some binding effect on us. That's actually not really the case. European or any African organizations, regardless of their status, don't have any binding regulations on us. And moreover, actually now I'll start with my arguments. So, the fact has been established that the anti-terrorism codes, the Pakistan Penal Code, the Criminal Procedure Code, the processes have not been followed. They have been doing really bad, and they have failed to fulfill the mandate that has been accorded to them by the Constitution of Pakistan. And their inefficiency, and I do argue this, has damaged our effort in the fight against terrorism. Alright, so and with the 77% acquittal rate that has been shown, this is what, when we use the word acquittal rate basically refers to this lack of capacity in our domestic institutions and systems, which then leads to these acquittals. And when hardcore terrorists, you said, hardcore terrorists are those accused personnel for whom we have, it's like we have a very good amount of information against them, but due to lack of capacity of our internal systems, we cannot use that evidence inside the court. And that is a problem that is systemic. That is a systemic problem that cannot be fixed overnight. For systemic problems, in situations like the ones we are in right now, you do need stopgap arrangements. Because once the blood starts moving out, you cannot start treating cancer in that body. You have to stop that blood first of all. If that blood does not stop going out, the cancer does not really matter. Alright. So, in this light, the military courts were brought into place with the 21st Amendment with a sunset clause of 2 years. So nobody said that they're going to be staying there for a long time. I agree. Okay, so the proposition concedes to the point that they're not supposed to be a permanent part of the solution. However, at the same time, the statement was, for the trial of hardcore terrorists, then they should be a permanent part. We suggest that with certain amendments, they could be fully incorporated into the judicial system of Pakistan, and there has been international precedence for this. Alright, so military courts were brought into play with the 21st Amendment with a sunset clause of 2 years in 2015, with the National Action Plan being formulated with a vision to rid rid Pakistan of all this menace. However, those 2 years were given so that Pakistani authorities, the citizens themselves, and everybody at stake could start taking ownership and start changing the system that has caused these military courts to come into effect. Those 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, were wasted. They were not made a priority. On 7th of January 2017, earlier this year, with the 28th Amendment, military courts were given extensions again. That should not have happened. I don't agree. That should not have happened. But it did. However, it did, and it did so under full constitutional cover. It was a complete constitutional movement. Alright, so the problem is that my opposition might be able to stem from this, the fact that fundamentally human rights are abrogated, or there's been a separation of judiciary and executive. Well, let's start talking about legalities here. By virtue of the 21st Amendment, the Pakistan Army Act has been placed in Schedule 1, rendering it immune from application of Article 8, Subclause 1 and Subclause 2. So, the constitutional cover, I'm sorry, if even you can disagree with it as much as you want, but the constitutional cover remains the constitutional cover, the legalities remain legalities, and they are what matters at the end. So, because of this, we are not subject, the Pakistan Army Act then, after being placed, is not subject to the application of fundamental rights. Moreover, Article 175 had a proviso added to it, which takes care of that judiciary and executive division issue. However, the Liaquat Hussain case held that army, by aiding, yes, so there was a point raised in the Liaquat Hussain case that the army, while in aid of civil institutions, is supposed to not usurp civilian institution and their rule, and namely also judiciary. And then the Supreme Court, the highest court of our nation, and of course the highest legal mind, rather, said and opined, and I quote, threat of war was you. Threat of war was what brought the military court into play, and not just this aid in action in aid of civil powers. So, because of that, the scope has increased from just action in aid of civil power. Alright, so of course there are you can appeal decisions on the basis of malified intent, jurisdiction problems and absence of justice grounds, and injustice, and these were certainly raised in different points. So technically, military courts are not like a global hegemon of any sort that they cannot be questioned in any regard. Yes, they can, and there are certain grounds for that. But Judgment Azman Saeed again inside the Zaman versus Federal Pakistan case held a very strict interpretation on the grounds of this appeal. And I quote, he said, this nature of offence was exactly the mischief sought to be suppressed. So, Pakistan Army Act of 1952 has constitutionally applied, hence all other arguments are invalid. If it's being constitutionally applied, and these reviews are being given chance, I don't see any reason why there's any legal lacuna in that. We also hold that the conflict in Fatah Bata in question is a non-international armed conflict, and the laws applicable from that as stemming from a conflict paradigm. This allows, when IHL applies to this, and Zainab might be able to corroborate that fact as the West did, that it allows for the derogation of fundamental rights. This is an internationally accepted phenomenon. It allows for derogation of fundamental human rights. And detainment is legal even without charge. And mind you, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan right now is in an extremely unique position. It's a cornered state which is being dealt with hypocrisy as well on the international forum. Moreover, international precedence has been set with hypocrisy towards this. US has kept inmates in Guantanamo through the Military Commissions Act of 2006 and 2009. The Guantanamo military trials were authorized the military through executive orders, presidential executive orders. It goes against the judicial branch of US government and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Uniform Code of Military Justice is almost equivalent to the Pakistan Army Act 1952 of Pakistan, and it was created specifically so that these constitutions, so So a constitutional cover could be provided to all what was happening. Yes, I agree. The U.S. federal courts do the cases that all happen in there. All the rights. But what they do, powerful states, what they do is they find these legal lacuna and lawfare is what is employed. All right. So it's not only a legal perspective; it's also a very big strategic perspective to it as well. And this goes against a lot of international